Welcome back, and thanks so much for staying with ANN7 Prime. My name is Cindy Mabi. Good evening to you. The new U.S. minister in President Jacob Zuma's cabinet took charge today. Advocate Bongani Bongo was sworn in as State Security Minister. Advocate Bongo was appointed in President Jacob Zuma's latest cabinet reshuffle, replacing David Mahlobo, who is now the Energy Minister. Yesterday, President Jacob Zuma made changes in key portfolios like energy, communications, home affairs, and higher education. And questions have been raised about the motive behind the cabinet reshuffle. Some analysts say President Jacob Zuma made changes in key portfolios with an eye on his legacy. And his move on the intelligence portfolio arises from a growing concern about foreign interference in the affairs of the ANC and the state, and an inability to get its messaging right has been the Achilles heel of Zuma's administration, and hence the change at the Ministry of Communication. In energy, it's been long decided that future nuclear projects worth more than R1 trillion would go to a friendly government, for instance, in the BRICS bloc, and resolving the fees must fall impasse in the higher education sector. Joining us in studio, Mosiri Tsiane, South African Liberty Foundation chairperson. Thanks indeed for your time. It's been a while. Welcome to the show. Just looking at the cabinet reshuffle in general, of course, there's been a keen interest, particularly in state security and the energy department, in the sense that there is suspicion or question around why David Mahlobo has to take over that portfolio.
Well, there shouldn't be much questions, no have an interest much to do with what is expected of them to do in this instance. Listen, this is a prerogative of a president who feels that I can appoint whomever I deserve to appoint, and I can make reshuffles whenever I need to do that. If I feel I'm not served well in one portfolio, and I feel a particular minister will serve me better in another portfolio, he can do that. The interest that people would have is that, listen, there shouldn't be an appointment in the energy department, particularly there are fears that says that the nuclear is going to be a costly affair. No court in South Africa says that. The matter was referred to courts, if one can recall. And what the court said is that the processes in which you wanted to undertake in making a nuclear power station for this instance is that you did not follow the process. Go back to the ground, redo your process, and so that you can do whatever you want to do as a state. The opposition to this, I do not know where we come from. We've got Pelindaba nuclear, which is in existence as we speak. We've got a Quebec nuclear power station, which is in existence in the Western Cape. If you've got to build even furthermore, there's a need for that. Why should there be a hula baloo? What's the noise all about? I don't know where it comes from. But this is the clean energy that we can have as South African. Some will make a noise and say that it's going to be more costly and it's going to cost most South Africans more money. How much does at this instant cost us to really put on our lights? It is very expensive from where we stand. So the noise that we are receiving is nothing else but people who don't want to see a development of Africa in general.
No, but also the independent power producers, the question, of course, with the Public Enterprises Minister, in a sense, imposing that the contracts ought to be signed. Some analysts suggesting that the previous minister was not pliable, and that now that we have David Mahlobo, he would do away with those and, in effect, be biased towards a nuclear policy.
Whoever is going to be appointed, whom should they appoint? Whom should the state appoint? In this instance, whom should be our friends that we appoint? Must we appoint USA? Must we appoint UK? Is that what is expected? If it's Russia, if it's going to find assistance from France, there's an issue with that. If you've got in particularly, if it's USA, if it's Britain, if it's France, there are no issues. But if it's Russia, then you've got a problem with that. It ought not to be this country, it should be that country. The choice is going to be made by those that we have chosen to lead us. In this instance, we can never forget that whenever there was a times that we were in battle, there were friends of the South African. We are in BRICS now. Surely we should be expecting that from BRICS we ought to be getting that assistance. It cannot be that we doubt the relationship that we have, this relationship that we ought to be having with BRICS countries.
Yep, and we have the privilege and honor to have newly appointed State Security Minister, Advocate Bongani Bongo, joining us in studio, or rather on the phone line. Congratulations are in order for your appointment as the newest cabinet member in the President Jacob Zuma administration. Our viewers would also want to know, in terms of the State Security Minister, what does it entail? I know it's early days for you, but what do you anticipate that you would have to put your hands on first?
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. I think first and foremost, I would like to thank the President, His Excellency, Comrade President Zuma, and the African National Congress for the confidence they've shown in me to can take this duty that they've been given. I think that I've just been sworn in recently, I think some hours ago. We are taking meetings tomorrow with the senior management of the department to do an assessment of what are the issues that must be tackled urgently. But I want to assure all South Africans that we will not betray the trust they've given to us. We will, at all costs, do this work with integrity and honor, and do what we're required to do in terms of legislation and in terms of what national security requires of us.
Yeah, and if you can just clarify, Minister, I think the question was around or how you've been introduced into the public domain. Was that a very little known Advocate Bongi Bongo? If you were to just give us, in terms of your, I suppose, attributes and credentials in this portfolio, is it a natural fit?
Yes, I have joined Parliament in 2014 and I was deployed in the security cluster. I was responsible for defense and military veterans in the Parliament. I was also part of the Justice and Correctional Services Committee. And I have worked with issues of security before in the Mpumalanga province. But what is important in the position is that there are a lot of legislation in the state security that needs to be implemented and be interpreted. Some needs to be introduced in Parliament, like the cybercrime and security bill. So those are some of the issues that we'll be looking at going forward.
All right, so I know you press for time, Minister, but just please stay with us or indulge us. We have Alex Mashilo as SACP spokesperson, and Mosiri Tsiane is with the South African Liberty Foundation as their chairperson. Good evening to you, Alex. I'm sure from the SACP, they're also, and there's a custodian of, I suppose, economic activism, social activism, or whatever it is that you do. You'd want to know what the Minister of State Security would have to prioritize.
Look, there are many things that have gone wrong with our state security. We don't want to give a prescription to the minister. I think it's only fair to allow him to receive his induction and interact afterwards.
All right, you heard that. I think it's almost a blessing in disguise, if you will, that you are given time to settle in and list your priorities. But at the top of your head, challenges that you think may be insurmountable or that will take you a while longer to fix.
No, I appreciate that benefit that we need to go and do assessment. It's what I've just requested, that I was sworn in not long ago. So we need to go and do assessment, get the annual performance plans, get to know, because now we're busy with the budget reviews and so on. And then we'll then look at all the issues that people are raising and all the perceptions that they're raising in terms of the legislation.
All right, thanks so much, Minister Advocate Bongane Bongo, the Minister of State Security, joining us via our outside broadcast facility. Thanks indeed and congratulations. In order, other guests, Chris Malimaja, Sanko Gauteng Provincial Chairperson on the line, Jackie Shandu, political commentator, and Sizwe Pamla, COSATU spokesperson, is also on the line. Good evening to you and thanks so much for joining us. Is this, in your view, the reshuffle at least, indicating to Jacob Zuma's legacy or an attempt thereat? Sizwe?
Well, look, this is the 12th one in 8 years. We are not sure what exactly is the legacy when you consider the fact that when it comes to unemployment, we have gone back to the levels of 2003. You would have expected that if you inherit an administration, you come in to fix whatever that was wrong from the previous administration. Unfortunately, we are going back. When you look at the level of unemployment, including the poverty statistics, you can look at the Millennium Development Goals that have been set up. South Africa, we've got 13 million people living below poverty line, according to State SA. So for us, we represent the workers and the working class. So when we look at where we are as the workers and the working class, we see nothing really to celebrate over the last 8 years.
All right, Jackie, your comment on that in the latest reshuffle, obviously it would be his last, but very key portfolios, especially in energy and state security. Jackie? All right, let's go to Chris Malimaja. Are you there? Chris, can you hear me? Okay, we seem to be having gremlins in the system. Let's come to you, Alex. Just in, you can call President Jacob Zuma a master chess player, a strategist, and some even saying he's the only true politician that we've seen in South African, the South African landscape. What, in your view, would be the rationale behind this particular reshuffle?
No, look, we are going to the ANC's national conference in December. There is only one minister who was removed from the cabinet yesterday, and that's Dr. Blade Nzimande. The others were shifted from one portfolio to another, having been appointed some 7 months ago. So if you don't look at the political nature of the reshuffle, you will not understand it. And the best way to understand it is to look at the political context in which it took place. We are dealing here with a reshuffle that was effected by the president without consultation with the ANC. That tells you about the state of the ANC. In working class politics, in working class leadership, in a leadership process guided by the principle of collective leadership, deployees obtain mandate from the organizations that deployed them. When a deployee breaks away...
Even the president?
Yes, even the president. He did not contest elections as an individual. This is not the United States of America. It is the Republic of South Africa. We are a multi-party democracy. It is not the president who stood for elections. It is the African National Congress. And when the ANC stood for elections, it did not do so only on behalf of its own members. It did so as the leading organ of our alliance. In the same way as MPs are expected to act in accordance with the mandate decided by the ANC, the president must act in accordance with the mandate decided by the ANC. That is a principle of collective leadership. So the reshuffle tells you there are leadership problems in the ANC, and those leadership problems clearly spelled out yesterday by the Secretary General when he said that the ANC was not consulted but was merely informed. I can tell you the South African Communist Party was not consulted when its leader was removed. COSATU said it in their statement that they were not consulted.
They were notified after the fact.
Look, they were not consulted. They received some courtesy call. Their statement is quite very clear. Sanko is here. Now, if you talk about the legacy, you're talking about the legacy of deepening divisions, the legacy of deepening disunity. of the alliance, the legacy of declining historical support that the ANC has received. For the first time between 2009 and now, the ANC has been declining in the election. If you make a reshuffle to maintain your legacy as an individual, that will be the bad legacy. But however, we are looking here on a matter not in the lenses of an individual, right? So you cannot be concerned about your legacy as an individual because you have too many weaknesses. So we must be concerned about the legacy of the ANC as a leader, both of its members and the alliance, as well as the South African society. Where does this reshuffle leave us? I'm sure you have seen it did not leave us united. It plunged us into a crisis of disunity. That is a bad legacy.
All right, Chris Malimaja, I believe you're with us now. Good evening to you, Sanko Gauteng Provincial Chairperson, and Alex Mashilo, of course, from SACP, very disgruntled, saying that there was lack of consultation and that the legacy of Jacob Zuma would be that of perpetuating divisions. Your view, primarily if you look at how untenable the relationship had been with COSATU and SACP, Zuma not being welcomed at their events, etc. In your view, what would his legacy be then?
Thank you very much, and also down to the viewers. Let me take this opportunity to say, as Sanko too, we were not consulted or even informed. All what we saw is through the media. I'm fully convinced that this president is stubbornly convinced himself that what legacy want to put is to ensure that state capture is here and corruption is here. Therefore, whoever seems to be orchestrator of anti-state capture, anti-corruption must be dealt with. If perhaps Zuma was sober enough, knowing very well come December he doesn't have interest of becoming the president of the ANC, who will automatically become the president of the country, he should be playing a very uniting figure role. Instead, he's deepening division as if he's destroying the alliance. He doesn't want to see anything that has to do with alliance. Worse in this case, himself in his cabinet is just shifting people out to shift a person who has given only 7 months. If it is a fact that this person didn't deliver, why can't he chop them out and bring new blood? For a mere fact that they were given only 7 months, now they're shifted to the other position. What magic will they bring if they fail to give in that particular opportunity where they were given? A very critical, position of this state security. This young boy, Bongani, as much as we congratulate him because he never appointed himself, what difference will he bring? After his predecessor was seen in all over Shebins, posting with all these ladies. Where I'm standing as Sanko, we are very much disappointed. We just think the president is abusing the so-called president prerogative in the constitution.
All right, Sizwe Pamela, before we come to you, Masiri, just if you juxtapose that with the policy of radical economic transformation that has given a sense of renewed, what's the word, economic codessa, if you will, that at least negotiations or some form of a trajectory will now ensue where we'll deal with the imbalances of what we see in South Africa, and you take the SACP. No, hold on, I'm not done yet, and you can entertain yourself all you want, but I'm going to finish this. Yes. In the legacy of Zuma, not necessarily just being one-sided. You obviously have a different perspective. We'll come to you.
Yes.
You see, where we stand in actual fact ourselves, we are rather amazed. I think all South Africans are amazed. The president in general has been under attack from the alliance group, from your Sanko, from your COSATU, all along. He makes a change. Now he's been turned into a tyranny. He's been turned into a dictatorial leadership. All along he's barred to even address the SACP from addressing COSATU members. He's barred. He's been insulted by all means. I mean, how would a leader call a minister who's just been appointed a boy? This shows the disrespect that some of the members of your alliance with the ANC are having with their mother body. ought to have, if they wanted, really one would say that you would have expected that the alliance would have had their meetings. But they themselves are the ones who did not even pitch up when they were invited in such meetings. Now what you ought to be having in this regard is that you would have a respect of that alliance, people who would sit down and would have discussed their matters in-house. Now they don't do that. They wait for the president to react, or rather, whether they call it a reaction, but to do what his prerogative that has been given by the Constitution. Once he does that, then the president is the dictator. He does what he likes. He's not having the interests of South Africa at large. Listen, what we are all asking for is not about positions in this regard, but we want to have the interests of South Africans that be placed at forth. If the president feels that this appointment are going to serve South Africans at a better level, let it be. Who are we to be at this instant and say, no, no, you should have consulted with us, you should have not removed our secretary and so forth? That is not the case. The case is, would the ministers that are coming in serve South Africans at the best, better interest? That's all we are asking for, and we should be looking at it. Because I remember who was speaking, talked about jobs and say that this taking over of the president, or rather these changes, should be in the interest of jobs. Yes, that's what COSATU should be standing for. But instead, it has been rather within their lips at all times a political tune, a political song. Not be interested in making sure that they save the interest, and they pursue, even in their meeting, they pursue that there should be creation of jobs. We want them to tackle such issues.
Yeah. Can I paraphrase what I meant to say earlier on, and I know you found it quite amusing, is that President Jacob Zuma has been also in rationalizing the cabinet reshuffle, even where Pravin Gordhan was a casualty, was that it's perceived that those ministers are anti-transformation. So we don't know. He hasn't issued a statement around why the reshuffle happens. You've got your own observations around it. So could it be that indeed, in his view, it was that a particular minister, in this case, Blade Nzimande, was counter-transformation?
Let me just correct you. This is just a friendly correction. We convened many Alliance Political Council meetings. We went there. It is Jacob Zuma who postponed them. He didn't come. The meetings did not take place. That is for historical record, for you to know as an analyst. So we suggest, in order to provide us a correct analysis, you must follow events. Secondly, the talk of radical economic transformation is an empty talk. When President Jacob Zuma removed Pravin Gordhan as the Minister of Economic Transformation, he released a statement. In that statement, he clearly asserted radical economic transformation. The market reacted negatively to what he said. He was opening one of the Transnet projects 2 days later. What the president said, if I were to quote him in his own words, is that policy will remain the same. The only thing he did was to only change the ministers who were there. That's why I laughed when you asserted radical economic transformation. One of the reasons why I reacted that way, by the way, I was listening to the Minister of Finance, who, when he was appointed, the president asserted the notion of radical economic transformation. He had an interview with CNN yesterday in the United States of America. What he said, he did not assert radical economic transformation, he asserted structural economic reforms. So, in politics, we don't judge people by what they say from the word of mouth. We judge them by who they really are and what they do in practice. There is high levels of poverty, COSATU is right. High levels of unemployment, COSATU is right. That's our ally. We are in an alliance here. When we convene a meeting to engage the president internally, and the president runs away and cancels the meeting, we can't come here and be told we must go to an internal meeting that the president canceled. That is an ill-informed statement.
Okay, that's internal, of course, details that you're not bringing to the...
The reason why more and more now we will be coming out to say these internal things is because we have to deal with ill-informed statements presented to us as concrete analysis. Ordinarily, we should not be doing this. SABC, by the way, is bankrupt. SAA is bankrupt. Our strategic fuel reserves have been sold at mysteriously discount prices at Central Energy Fund. Petro SA had problems. Transnet had problems. Post Office went down because a tender was given to a global multinational corporation ignoring our own post bank. That is not radical economic transformation. That is to destroy the very institutions
Yeah.
that must
but
be
Alex,
leading
but
us
also
to implement
historically,
radical
those
economic
state-owned
transformation.
entities
That
were
is
not
a very bad
necessarily
legacy.
in a good financial health.
That is a very bad-
No.
I
We've
mean,
also done our own research.
Our strategic fuel reserve.
Yes, but hold on. Let's not convolute. Let's not conflate issues.
In a good shape until they were sold at a discount
That's the problem. Where we don't even go forward. I mean, we only have so much time. We're talking about the legacy, Zuma, and I'm saying to you, historically, even before Zuma, you can even say post-94, that SOEs generally had problems.
When
you
last
can't
was
lump
the
that
SABC bankrupt, according to your records?
All right, so
except now under the leadership of President Jacob Zuma.
Let's give Chris Malimaja also an opportunity. We have literally a minute. Chris, so just in your view, the assessment that Alex has given, that it's absolutely been complete chaos since the administration of Zuma.
I fully agree there, because what we see here, all of us, is clear that it is a matter of just shifting goalposts. We also want to emphasize that for so long as there's no sitting around the table and come with a strategy that will all of us agree, we are going to have a situation where it's going to be one-man line. And once it's one-man line, those who really see it differently, and then when they raise their voices, they get cut off. Therefore, we are on a state where at any time anything can collapse. All what Alex has mentioned is true. They are bankrupt simply because there's no good advisors. And the strategic advisors, the whole thing, is alliance in collective, not alliance as one man. So the ANC in particular, led by Zuma, is proving a point that they don't want to co-govern with the so-called alliance, They want to just do it as ANC, and they are ruling as ANC. There's no alliance in the ruling system. It is only alliance outside the ruling system. That is why it's very important to reconfigure this, so that at the end of the day, people do not go there and not be able to voice what they represent. Because how to represent the workers? As a CPF, the vanguard, we represent the masses on the ground. We can't be given a post when we're supposed to say, this is the will of the masses, then we are kicked out. We think the ANC under this leadership is not necessarily doing any good legacy. Instead, it's destroying the good work.
All right, Chris Malimaja, we're going to have to leave it there. That's all the time we have. And Sizwe Pamla, COSATU spokesperson, Namosiri Tsiane from South as their chairperson, Alex Mashilo, SACP spokesperson. And you at home, thanks indeed for joining us. We take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. Do stay tuned for ANC Decides with Mfundo Mabalani just after this.